The prosecution is not going to get that man today. No, because I'm going to get him.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, listeners and viewers worldwide, to a very special Wednesday edition of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Today is a live broadcast. It is the 29th day of August, 2012, although you could not verify that by me, so you might want to check your calendars.
It has been a busy 24 hours, ladies and gentlemen. My father, especially, having done 4 radio interviews today.
Yeah, I think it's number 5, I guess.
Yeah, and you were on Alex Jones, you were on Rick Wiles, you were on
Buffalo Niagara Falls, and so there's another one in there somewhere. But anyway, what a show, folks. You're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report again. This is a live broadcast. If you want to watch us, which I don't know why anyone would, blue dots are available upon request at Homeland Security US, the number 1.tk. That's for video. That's Homeland Security US, the number 1.tk. If you want to watch this broadcast live, watch us
at Homeland Security US, 1.tk, like you said.
Homeland Security. Yeah, thank you very much. All right, and otherwise, folks, we are broadcasting live as well via our website, HomelandSecurityUS.com. And
we have a very special guest tonight, reoccurring guest for us. She was with us on May 18th of this year. Since then, she has been on the Real News on GBTV. That aired on June 29th. Also, she was a guest on the Keith Hansen show.
Who's going to be a guest on our show tomorrow, by the way.
Yeah. And I'm really looking forward to going back and listen to that interview after the show tonight, because I did not get a chance to do that. And with that, Marinka Peshman, author of The Whistleblower.
Yes.
How the Clintons stayed in power.
They never left power, folks. Yes. And I'll tell you, the title. If Marinka and I were talking earlier today, and I do hope my voice does hold up for tonight, but we were talking earlier today, and I asked her, I said, what do you think the title of the broadcast, an appropriate title, would be? And she said, History Repeating Itself. And I look, I'm going to tell you, how appropriate is that? Because, number one, we've got history repeating itself because via the Clintons, the Clinton regime, their influence on the Obama crime syndicate, and we've got... if you want to go back further in history, look at our involvement in Iraq and Afghanistan, and there's some history repeating itself there. If you know American history, you'll understand what I'm talking about. But our guest's website is marinkapeshman.com. That is marinkapeshman.com. It'll be accessible. The link we'll put it in the interactive chat feature, but.
Yeah, I'll do that right now.
What we're gonna do is because tonight's broadcast is so important, because what Marinka's got to say is so important, folks. What we're gonna do is we're gonna actually write up an article about this and put it on our front page, and then with links to the archive. But I got to tell you, if there's any one person out there that knows what happened in the Clinton White House, if there's any one person out there that I could say is
it's still happening,
right, but this is a heroine of mine, not heroine like heroine, female hero. She's a remarkable young lady. She's a gutsy woman. She has this book, The Whistleblower, folks. If you want the template to today's what's going on today, just grab yourself a copy of The Whistleblower, buy it via her website, via I believe it's on Amazon.com or wherever. But just get a hold of it because there's so much information in there.
The Kindle edition is available?
Yes. And she's a good friend of mine. She is one of the most intelligent people I know.
Great bio. Yeah.
One of the most gutsiest people I know for a woman. She's got more guts than most guys I know.
Yes.
And she's a great-looking lady as well. I mean, and I don't mean that in a sexist way either. She's
just been around the media and back again.
Their picture, by the way, that's on the Opportunist magazine, front page, as it should be. If I had a magazine, she'd be on the front page too.
And Troy, who's producing our video, broadcasting our video, I sent you a link on Skype that has an article with a video in it.
Right.
From Marinka Peshman's website, called "Bill and Hillary Clinton Are Moderates Next to Obama. Don't Fall for That Garbage."
Please, if you can.
We're going to bring on Marinka, and then Troy, you can just give me a heads up whenever you got that queued up, and we'll go from there.
All right. Yeah. Now, hopefully, Marinka, I've done okay by you in terms of an introduction. Have I?
Oh, you've been far too generous. Thank you so much for having me back again. And we're up against the RNC convention, so I'd like to extend a special thanks to your listeners for tuning in. I think the show, though, will be off air by the time Paul Ryan speaks. And for me, personally, that's the most interesting speech to watch. So thanks for joining us.
Well, I got to tell you, our listeners are not right-left focused. They're big picture focused. Our listeners, I really believe, and I say this with conviction, the people who listen to our program, I mean, some of the most intelligent people call. Our callers are very intelligent. Our listeners are extremely intelligent, and they know when smoke is being blown up their butt. And sorry for being crass, but they do.
Well, that's a lot of what the conventions are about. It's the cake and circus phase. So.
Yeah, exactly. So, Marinka, we covered a lot of ground in our conversations here in the last couple of days, and we've talked about a lot of things. And if you would ask
for your listeners, if I may, I've been very concerned about what is happening with the vets and the way they're being targeted, and particularly what happened with that one Marine for a Facebook post.
That's right.
And it's great that the Rutherford Institute has stepped in, John Whitehead, and it's very interesting because that institute was involved in helping the Paula Jones case. A lot of people may not remember that. So there are people who consistently stand up and fight for people's rights and fight for the truth. And it's not easy. And here they are again, standing up for this Marine, and I think that's wonderful. So, but I wanted to, I guess there were two directions that we were talking about, in the sense of history repeating itself. During the Clinton era, people, again, they may not remember, they did not have a problem with criminalizing Americans or trying to criminalize Americans. It happened to Linda. You can read about it in my book. And for those who may not recall, she was charged by the state of Maryland for allegedly illegally wiretapping Monica Lewinsky with her conversations regarding President Bill Clinton. Now, in the state of Maryland, the taping laws, it's a one-state party, as opposed to majority of the states in America, which are two-state parties. So that means both parties in Maryland would need to know that they're being recorded.
Right. Now folks, we run into this a lot with surveillance. For example, when I worked as an operational asset for the FBI, they basically had license to do whatever. Of course, back then they had to have the proper paperwork. But as a PI, for example, New York State, I can take a tape recorder, put it in my pocket, go to someone, talk to them, and be well within my legal right to do so without their knowledge. Now, in Pennsylvania, for example, you can't do that. You have to have the consent of all parties involved in the conversation. So Linda got trapped up in that particular
in
law.
that particular web. But what was very interesting, so number one, it's a very murky law, very rarely prosecuted. But here's where the kicker came in. Their star witness, when they built a case around a star witness, Monica Lewinsky, who was a known perjurer. Most prosecutors are not going to build a case where your star witness is a known perjurer. Now, she perjured herself when she protected Bill Clinton. The reason she was not criminally charged was because she played let's make a deal. So, but correct me if I'm wrong, Doug, do you know any prosecutors who would build a criminal case around someone when their star witness has committed perjury?
Gee, let me check. No.
Yeah, you need a few minutes? Yeah.
No, of course
and what's
not.
even more chilling with this case was there were 49 Democrats who wrote letters putting pressure on the Maryland state prosecutors to do it. So it wasn't about the justice system. It was about the court of public opinion. And that's very, very chilling. So, but that was not it. So eventually the case was dropped. Well, of course, if your star witness isn't honest, is incredible. So it was ridiculous. But it did accomplish one thing. It intimidated Linda, and it kept her quiet. And that was the goal. So now, when I see, and they were successful, because she could have, if you read my book, blown the whistle on the Clintons. You know, for people who think that she had to be vilified and destroyed over sex in the Oval Office, well, forgive me, then I'm the tooth fairy. It was because of what had happened in the White House during all the other investigations earlier. And that's how good's not the right word, but how effective the White House and the media is at controlling the narrative. The duplicity from the Clinton White House era is mind-numbing. I mean, both sides are wrong. We must take politics out of all of our reporting. And so I say that now because, you know, history's repeating itself. We have an Obama administration who is also thwarting the rule of law. And so I'm kind of maybe going in a roundabout way, but it worked for Linda.
No.
The people from the Clinton White House, the Obama White House, they have a shared ideology where the ends justify the means. It's going to work again for them. And right now they're targeting the vets. So right now people need to stand up and defend the vets and the Tea Party people and other patriots and conservatives, anyone that is in their crosshairs. Because as God is my witness, they do not have a problem trumping up criminal charges.
So...
But then there's more, like in the... Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go on. It's making sense here. And
the pieces start to fall into place because, it really, we can learn from history, but in Linda's case, it went even further. The Clinton White House, out of the Pentagon, they legally leaked portions of her FBI file to discredit her.
Okay.
They did not have a problem breaking the law to harm, injure, discredit, destroy an American citizen. So what I'm really trying to convey to your listeners, they will do it again. It's the same ideology. And again, it worked for the Clintons. What ultimately happened? They settled.
No.
They settled.
Okay.
All the information that Linda's lawyers had accumulated, and some of it include the private investigators and the dirt diggers. This is what they do. They hire people to dig dirt. I mean, there were private investigators. Anthony Pellicano is one. Now, I don't know if you recall Anthony Pellicano, but he's currently serving, forgive me, I forget how many years in prison in Los Angeles.
Most deservedly so. Yeah.
It was like 76 charges. It was I mean, what he did to intimidate people, it's shocking, just shocking. Well, he was also working with the Clintons.
Directly with the... Oh, man. Okay.
Yeah, but what I can tell you is when they settle a case, all the information that her lawyers had accumulated, it's under seal. The American public never gets to see what really goes on. And that was the same when they dropped Linda's case. There was all sorts of grand jury testimony. You know, the media was there and filming people in and out of the courthouse. Well, had the case gone to trial, Linda would have won. I honestly believe that. And also, the American public would have seen how far Bill and Hillary would go to lie, to hurt innocent Americans, to stay in power. So again, I bring this up because what happened to Linda could happen to a lot of other people. And you remember that saying, first they came for the Jews and I didn't say anything because I wasn't Jewish. Mm-hmm. We are seeing that now. So I cannot...
Yeah, because and excuse me for interrupting. It's just so I'm clear. You've got Linda Tripp back in the 1990s, who's got the goods on. She's talking to Monica. She gets the evidence. She's got the goods on Bill Clinton. Okay, but kind of all through that whole process. And we're looking. I guess I'm looking at the larger picture here. All through that whole process, ultimately what happens is, and correct me if I'm wrong or if I'm looking at this improperly, but in the pursuit of justice against Clinton for his deeds and the Clintons for their misuse of what I would call, the FBI files and so on. In that pursuit, there was no justice there. They escaped.
No, and there's not going to be any justice in the Obama White House if people do not learn from history.
Yeah, I was
and stand up and demand justice.
Thank you for completing that, because that's what I was kind of going for. That.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, how ridiculous.
Oh yeah, because. Oh, I'm sorry.
That we see, athletes going to jail over steroid usage and lying to Congress over that, but we have humongous financial thefts that are provable. The people have committed perjury in front of Congress, and Congress has the right to arrest these people right there, yet choose to let them walk free.
That's right. Yeah.
And who's involved in the MFM Global?
Right.
Debacle, I don't know what, John Corzine, and who profited? Bill Clinton. This is what happens when corruption is not held accountable. It grows. It gets worse. If you dodge justice, you know how to. Look, what just happened recently with Daryl Issa, he gave us an interview recently, and he feels bad that the Fast and Furious and the next phase isn't going to happen for the next several months. I hate to say this, he just got played. He fell into their playbook, the stall, the deny, the thwart investigators, withhold evidence. Those are all tactics. They're all documented in my book.
Right.
And he just got played. And I don't hold a lot of confidence that anything is going to happen to Eric Holder.
No, I don't either. But let me ask you. I don't want to gloss over this. Who benefited MF Global, John Corzine? You said Bill Clinton.
Yep.
Okay. Whoa. How so?
Because he had brought in consultants to help MF Global, and they were all getting paid for their work, and he also received a fee. A monthly fee. Mm-hmm.
All right. Mm-hmm. I don't think do a lot of people know that? I mean,
no, a lot of people don't know that. If you Google Bill Clinton, John Corzine, MF Global, it'll come up.
Okay.
And they are masters at smoke and mirrors, and they get paid very well for smoke and mirrors. And here we go again. Yeah, a lot of innocent people lost a lot of money, and it's doubtful. I mean, what was it, $1 billion? Poof, thin air.
$1.2 billion.
Right, and where will Bill Clinton next week will be the keynote speaker at the DNC, and he will be putting President Barack Obama's name into nomination. Are we living in the Twilight Zone?
Yeah, well,
we definitely are.
To round that out, throw in Carter and maybe never mind. But I get that. Wow.
This is what is so incredible to me, is because Bill and Hillary Clinton are being recrafted as moderates. And look, I don't have a crystal ball. No one can say for sure what will happen, but there's a school of thought that, if Obama loses or, the Clintons save him, and what will happen, and we don't know. What I do know is the Clintons are being recast as moderates. What I do know is I hear on the right how they miss the days of the Clintons.
Yeah.
And it's like, so you're missing the days of corruption where innocent Americans were targeted. And just because it wasn't you, it's okay. But now, because that corruption was not ever held accountable, it has grown. It's the ideology that these people share. It's almost musical chairs. It doesn't even matter who the person is. People with this ideology where the ends justify the means. It's the Saul Alinsky, Rules for Radical, the book dedicated to Lucifer that people try to say, well, who cares? I promise you care.
Right.
Please care. Because these people do not care about you. And if you're in their way, they have no problems destroying you. And we're seeing that now with the vets.
Okay.
And if that's not a giant red flag, I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, and we've got a lot of ground to cover on the veterans because that's so important. But before we get into that, Marinka, let me ask you something. I've never seen anything like this before, and I've been voting since, well, I won't tell you when, but it's been a long time. Okay, I'm watching the various conservatives, the people, the bastions of conservatives. I said bastions. Okay, so don't worry.
Are you being facetious? Are you being?
Yes, I am.
Forgive me.
No,
this is a serious question.
But I'm watching these people say, like you said, they miss the days of the Clinton, and the Clintons are moderates, and how. How can that be? Help me with this. Help me.
I was young, very young during the Clinton administration, but one thing that is always referred to when people talk about the administration was the economy.
Well, yeah, the economy is good, Marinka.
So if the economy was the way it is now during that administration, I think there would have been a lot more problems. But
Well, yeah, but people also forget, and again, because they're putting Bill Clinton as the savior, right?
Right.
And he was the president that presided over a successful economic time. Well, let's also remember what happened during his era. Bill Clinton, with the help of Republicans, this is a bipartisan issue, repealed Glass-Steagall. Glass-Steagall was, kept the banks from becoming casinos. When that was repealed, that's when the banks and all these hedge funds and all these other businesses literally became casinos and started betting with other people's money.
Yeah, and that was a bipartisan bill, by the way, or a law.
Completely. The Republican Congress with Bill Clinton repealed Glass-Steagall. It's interesting to me that Sandy Weil from Citigroup, who was probably like the person who benefited personally from the repeal of Glass-Steagall, and he's been named as one of the 25th, top people responsible for the economic crisis. Even he recently said, why hasn't that been reinstated? Well, it hasn't been reinstated because the Obama administration is not serious about fixing the economy.
Of course
Marinka, I'm not sure.
They're destroying it.
I'm not even sure it can be fixed, though. The economy, mathematically, where are we not, like, pretty much DOA, or we're just waiting to be pronounced,
Well, unfortunately that may be the case, but I truly believe if people were sincere about fixing it, you would have seen people put in jail.
Yep.
There was also that congressman who appeared on C-SPAN, Paul Dorsky, if memory serves me correct, and he flat out came out and said there was a run on the banks. We had to shut it down. There weren't many people that could pull out, billions of dollars out of the U.S. economy to crash it. That was during 2008. We don't know who that person is. We have our suspicions. We don't know who that person is. The government doesn't want to find out who the person is. The government, they know who it is.
Yeah. And
Marinka, did you see the article with one of the Rothschilds, George Soros, and John Paulson pulling their money out of the stocks they owned in financial banks, the big 6 U.S. banks, and purchase gold?
Yeah, they're throwing.
Yes, and that means if everybody else, you better start doing that, because if they're doing that, you need to do it, because then something is up. They're not pulling out their money out of those types of stocks if they thought it was going to go well.
Right.
These are not stupid people.
Exactly.
So you need to pull out too. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah.
Don't be the one left holding the bag, which is what always happens. And if I may just segue for a moment, it's interesting because I've always had this beef with Chuck Schumer, and that's a part of journalism when you deal with some of these people. And so I just have to say, in 1987, a lot of people don't know this, Chuck Schumer wrote an op-ed, again, you can Google this, it's on my website, that ran in the New York Times saying, making a passionate plea not to repeal Glass-Steagall because it would turn the banks into casinos. He, of course, was, one of the front runners with Bill Clinton in the repeal. They know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. See that, folks. They know what they're doing. Again, keywords, and it's. Do you see this as being a part of a larger plan? I know we're venturing now into what normal journalists would say. Well, this is kind of conspiracy stuff, but how could this not be something like? This is well beyond the simple game of politics, in my estimation. The right-left stuff. You're dealing with some powerful people here, are we not?
Oh, yes, and, again, I wish I had a crystal ball, and you want to stay out of the twilight zone, but, let's be honest, if they were serious about fixing the economy, they would have reinstated Glass-Steagall, and they would have found out who tried to destroy the U.S. economy, who pulled the run on the banks, who was involved in all of these bad loans, and, no one has been held accountable, not one person, except the American the American taxpayer seems to be the only person held accountable with their money, constantly bailing out these people.
Yeah, and it's not their debt that is the problem. Yesterday, the debt hit $16 trillion as of yesterday, and also there's an article, Citigroup has to pay a $590 million settlement due to subprime mortgage lawsuits.
That's chump change. That's chump change for Citigroup. That's a joke.
If you read the article, it says they made $70 billion on these toxic assets, and then they ended up taking...
Didn't they receive a bailout, though, too? Citigroup also received a bailout. So are they paying for their settlement out of the bailout from taxpayers?
People,
wake up.
This is this complete fascism, criminal government we have. The banks are in bed with the corporations and the government. Are all tied into one. When you have something like Obamacare being implemented on all the citizens unconstitutionally, yet certain companies and corporations and Obama donors and supporters are given waivers to where they do not have to, take on the burden of this tax, giving them a unfair playing field in the business market, where their competitors are paying all this extra money and they do not have to. It is just complete corruption. And like I continue to say, I think America is dead and gone, America as we knew it, and it's never coming back.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope that's not the case. I pray that that's not the case.
Yeah.
We can see, and if I may segue just slightly more into the military and the troops,
which is good, yes.
A weakened America has not made the world a better place, has not made the world a safer place. Yeah. And with it being campaign season, we're hearing a lot of talk about the economy, and we see, people will always say how wonderful the troops are. No one is talking about the policies right now on the battlefield that have been going on for years. So if I may make this segue...
Let's do it, because this is, folks, this is so important. Listen to what Marinka has to say about this, about what's going on with our troops. Go ahead, Marinka.
There is a policy called catch and release, and literally it's where your men and women in the military have been sent to war to catch terrorists to release them. Now, it first started under Bush, and this is from, I'm reading off a report from 2007. And the thinking at the time was they wanted to kind of play nice with Iran because maybe we can deter Iran from their nuclear weapons program. So this is how it was described. Okay, so I'm actually reading from a Washington Post article from 2007. For more than a year, U.S. forces in Iraq have secretly detained dozens of suspected Iranian agents, holding them for 3 to 4 days at a time. The, quote, catch and release, end quote, policy was designed to avoid escalating tensions with Iran and yet intimidate its emissaries. Okay, so we got a little bit of appeasement here. Now, here is a quote from a senior administration official. I'm sorry, let me just back up. Last summer, however, senior administration officials decided that a more confrontational approach was necessary as Iran's regional influence grew and U.S. efforts to isolate Tehran appeared to be failing. Well, of course, Iran only respects power, force.
Mm-hmm.
So here is a quote from a senior administration about the success of catch and release. There was no cost to the Iranians. They are hurting our mission in Iraq, and we're bending over backwards not to fight back. Now, this is back in 2007. So the Bush team changed gears and started a new program that was called Kill and Capture. Okay, so we know catch and release does not work. They tried the appeasement. It failed. It does not work. So what is happening since Obama's taken office? Catch and release.
Catch and release
history repeating itself now.
For the immigrants.
Right.
But the kill or capture list is only a kill list.
Well, it's interesting because the catch and release is now applying also in country with the illegal aliens, right? So you have that happening in country, but you also have it in the battlefield. Now, I'm going to cite an article from the Washington Examiner. This is from 2010 about catch and release. Sorry, bear with me one moment. Oh, here we go. Troops here have nicknamed the local court system, quote, Taliban catch and release. They say it has emboldened the Taliban. It certainly has angered native troops who made enormous sacrifices tracking enemy fighters, only to watch them walk out of detainment. So American and Afghan military officials who spoke, it was the Washington Examiner that reported this, says the Afghan judicial system puts an unrealistic burden of proof on U.S. troops tracking and capturing enemy in the region. Now, let me give you a quote from, and this is from a U.S. military personnel. It's as if the Taliban has more rights than us or the people of Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. We have to let these guys go all the time, no matter what they do. And then we find them trying to hit us again. But if they think I've screwed up once, then they'll, referring to the military, have no problem throwing me to the wolves. This is what's happening today, yesterday, tomorrow, for years with the military. They have been ordered, sent to war to catch terrorists, to release terrorists. So I am waiting for, during this presidential campaign, for presidential nominee Mitt Romney to ask the President Obama, why are you sending our men to war to catch terrorists only to release them?
That's a good question. What the heck are we doing? Just engaging in a perpetual state of warfare for the sake of what?
Well, that's how it appears, because this is now what I cited is from 2010. We have confirmation. This is Vice Admiral Williams McRaven.
Right.
He testified recently in the Senate Armed Service Committee about catch and release. It's happening. People in government know it's happening. Congress knows it's happening. It is not effective. It is not a way to win a war. Why has this been going on? For years.
Well, in our off-air conversation, you had mentioned something that kind of struck me. Basically, this is an attrition of our troops, is it not? I mean, it's weakening our military.
It's weakening morale.
Right.
It's completely counterproductive, and it's dangerous. But it even gets worse. If you can imagine, it even gets worse. Now, this is from the New York Times, okay? When they capture and release some of these people, they can be released on a pledge. So essentially, they'll have like a 30-minute kind of sit-down with some U.S. military personnel and village elders, and if they vouch for that detainee, that they'll never go back to the battlefield and try to kill another American, we're going to let them go. Takes 30 minutes in and out. Now, how are the U.S. military personnel treated? A lot of people don't know. You have U.S. military personnel sitting in Leavenworth.
Right.
For war-related crimes. Now, some might be legitimate, some may not be legitimate. We don't know. What we can say is, do you think these policies might have had something to do with it? I don't know.
Well,
when you send people to... Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Of course.
You're exactly right. When you have a president that orders policies of torture and the people who carry out those acts are thrown in jail, yet the man responsible for giving the orders and making it legal, even though it's not legal, he is walking around free, George Bush. Can
you tell Marinka Joe has got a real thing for George Bush? But that's all right.
I mean, it's George Bush and Obama and Clinton. It's this global international cabal of satanic leaders that has been destroying this country systematically, and they're not stopping. Instead, they're speeding up. We are seeing right in front of our eyes our country change at a pace we've never seen before, at least not in my lifetime.
But Marinka, but what you said though too, okay? People the soldiers sitting in Leavenworth for crimes. We're seeing soldiers men and women come home minus limbs.
If they come home.
If they come home. With PTSD, with psychological issues. I mean, what the heck is the plan here?
Well, that's part of the reason why we're doing the show, is to try to figure it out, because we're going to put out the information and see if we can connect the dots.
Okay.
Because it just becomes even more sinister. So not only is there catch and release at the border and catch and release in the war zones, the Obama administration has been releasing terrorists since they took office. Okay? So here's an example from 2009. And this is, so here was the headline. Obama released a terrorist responsible for the brutal murder of 5 American soldiers in Iraq in exchange for the remains of 2 deceased British hostages. Okay?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now we have another one. Let me see. Also free under the Obama administration is Mohammed Jawad, a terrorist suspect, charged with attempted murder for allegedly throwing a grenade at 2 U.S. soldiers in Kabul, Afghanistan, back in 2002. So they're being released from Gitmo, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's more examples, but this one is very chilling. I don't know if a lot of people remember this, but in 2007, there were some forces from the Iranian Quds Force, from the Revolutionary Guard, that were captured in Iraq. And that was huge for the military because they knew Iran was meddling in diabolical, deadly ways. They were supplying weapons, and, you know, they had a lot of American blood on their hands. So for them to be able to catch people, that was huge. Well, Obama released them, too. And when they were released, this did not get the attention in the Western press as it did in the international press. Now, I don't know if you remember when the Lockerbie bomber was released. Right? That made huge news. He arrived in Libya with Gaddafi to a hero's welcome. Same thing happened with the Iranians. And, of course, upon their arrival in Iran, what were they chanting? Death to America.
Yeah, I don't mean to laugh.
It just keeps going on, worse and worse. And so I don't have all the answers. I'm putting out the information. Hopefully maybe some of your callers will call in, see if we can try to work through this. But now there's even more, okay? So, and I'm just giving you a couple examples. Or actually, there's a great one, because there are some people in Washington who are trying to make a difference. And one is Colonel Alan West.
Ah, okay.
And he always speaks up for the troops. And just recently, and this was actually just this past May, he wrote a letter regarding another detainee, terrorist, insurgent, however you want to call them, to President Obama, and I'm quoting. On January 20th, 2007, while serving as chief advisor to the Asib Allah al-Halq insurgent group, Ali Musa, I'm going to not say his name properly, forgive me.
Who can? I mean, really.
I think it's Dadouk, led a well-planned and coordinated attack in Iraq in which 1 American soldier, Captain Brian Freeman, was killed, and 4 were abducted. Those 4 soldiers, and I'm going to name them because people forget the names of the troops, and that's wrong. First Lieutenant Jacob Fritz, Specialist Jonathan Chisholm, Private First Class John Falter, and Private Jonathan Milliken were later found brutally tortured and murdered. As you are well aware, during the week of May 7, 2012, an Iraqi court cleared this Lebanese-born senior Hezbollah terrorist of any crimes and ordered his release. Government officials in your administration inexplicably transferred Dadouk to Iraq custody before the United States withdrew from Iraq in December 2011. Government officials in your administration have stated in the past that the Status of Forces Agreement negotiated by the Bush administration tied your hands by requiring Iraqi citizens to be handed over to the government of Iraq before the United States forces left in December of 2011. However, since Dadouk was born in Lebanon and was in fact a Lebanese citizen at the time of his capture, this stipulation would not apply. Mr. President, you had options when dealing with this terrorist. Dadouk could have been transferred to Guantanamo Bay, where he could have been tried in front of a military commission. At the very least, he could have been brought to another American military installation other than Guantanamo Bay for military commission. And this is the last part I'll read you. When you were elected president, the American people expected you to provide leadership to protect our men and women in uniform and to accept criticism from foreign nation governments when doing what is right in the name of American justice. As someone who served 22 years in the United States Army and served in both Operation Desert Storm and Operation Iraqi Freedom, I learned that true leadership means making responsible decisions, not necessarily popular ones. So it goes on, but I think you get the point.
Right.
So the question is I think we're in trouble.
Yeah.
Marinka, I think the military's in trouble. I'm sorry?
I just wanted to say this about Alan West, and this is one thing that bothers me with a lot of the Tea Party leadership. The NDAA legislation, voting in favor of the NDAA legislation, people like Alan West, other Tea Party patriots or people who call themselves or consider themselves to be Tea Party patriots, pro-liberty, limited government, signed this bill knowing exactly what the language inside of it was, which was that you can indefinitely detain American citizens without trial, without evidence.
Yeah, well, let me translate for you, Marinka. Joe's all hacked off at Alan West because he signed the NDAA legislation, which basically takes it.
Didn't he come out and explain why and explain some of the language? Because I don't know all the details, so I can't comment.
And Paul Ryan did the same thing, basically stating that it did not apply to American citizens, which turned out not to be true. But I'm not sure if that's what Alan West did. I do not remember.
I'm fairly certain that's what it was, But again, you're talking with a young man who's got a real thing for Alan West only because over this one issue, and that's the NDAA. And I realize it's a big issue, but we're talking about a lot of other things as well. But okay, but Marinka, we've got a bipolar. I don't know, a bipolar policy, if you will, with this.
It's counterproductive. Do you want to win this war or not? Because it's completely counterproductive. I don't know how you can argue.
What are we doing over there then? Why? I mean, are you in favor of continuing this course of operation?
No, for me it's very simple. We haven't even gotten into the rules of engagement, but essentially the troops have always been very restricted on what they can and cannot do. To the point where it puts their life in danger in protecting themselves. And either you allow them to fight and do the job, or you bring them home, because they can't win under these circumstances. They can't.
Do you think that's by design, these rules of engagement? And go ahead and get into that a little bit, because a lot of people don't really understand that their hands are tied,
Well, there's all sorts of rules about how close the person is, about positively identifying them before you shoot, and you first have to fire a warning shot. Well, in the fog of war, when you're in the middle of an IED explosion and you're being ambushed, there isn't always a lot of time to assess properly and be 100% sure. Now, unfortunately, sometimes there is collateral damage. That happens in war. But I think it's fair to say that the U.S. military has bent over backwards to protect the civilian population. Now, some people might disagree with me, but for those of us who've had friends who've served, it's for them to take an innocent life is a nightmare.
Right. No.
There's another quote. Of course. Now, there's another quote I'd like to share, and this is from Navy SEAL Marcus Luttrell. I don't know if your audience has had a chance to read his book, Lone Survivor. He was a Navy SEAL, and long story short, ambushed in Afghanistan, and all of his other brothers were killed. He was the only survivor. And part of it, he blames a decision. And here's his quote. "Look at me right now in my story, helpless, tortured, shot, blown up, my best buddies all dead. And all because we were afraid of the liberals back home, afraid to do what was necessary to save our own lives, afraid of American civilian lawyers. I have only one piece of advice for what it's worth. If you don't want to get into war, where things go wrong, where the wrong people sometimes get killed, where innocent people sometimes have to die, then stay the hell out of it in the first place." Oh. And I think that really sums it up. Because why is this war, 10 years now?
Yeah.
They should have been in and out.
Yeah.
Instead, we've got 10 years. We have troops on multiple deployments, families destroyed. I mean, could you imagine these politicians, Hillary waiting for Bill Clinton, who was on his second, third, fourth tour. These tours could easily be a year. Some are 7 months, some are 15 months gone. Could you imagine these people living the lives that the military has been ordered to live under?
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. So,
and that goes, for all the policymakers. I don't just want to, on the right and the left, frankly, because anyone serving in Congress, this is happening. No one is talking about. No one's talking about it.
No. The media's not talking about it, and both sides don't. I mean, this is a toxic subject, I guess.
It's gotten even worse, though. Do you want to hear more?
Yes, please.
So now we have, it's called green on blue attacks, and this is happening in Afghanistan. And I think the Obama administration is trying to rename it as insider, because insider attacks, I guess, sounds less nefarious than green on blue attacks. Green means the Afghan soldiers, And blue attacks are and the blue means the U.S. military or NATO forces. And what we're seeing now is a spike on green and blue attacks, and that means Afghan soldiers are now turning their guns and murdering U.S. military.
Yeah.
The number is escalating. And there's a colleague of mine is actually writing a book about this, and his name is Bob McCarty, and he has a lot of information on his website. I would recommend you go check it out. And he uncovered, it was an unclassified study called Crisis of Trust and Cultural Incompatibility. And I'll just read you part of the last paragraph, because they're now calling it fratricide, and that's where one that murders or kills his or own brother or sister, or an individual or countryman. So can you imagine, you have been sent to war, you're training the Afghan military and policemen so they can secure their country, so they can have some peace and hope for their lives, and now they're turning their guns on you. And part of it is because there's a mutual distrust. After 10 years of trying to win hearts and minds, because that's what we hear, right? We're there, we have to win the hearts and minds. So here we are 10 years later, and essentially, this is how they describe the mutual feelings, okay? So between the U.S. and NATO forces versus the Afghan forces, okay? So it's described as a very strong dislike, even contempt. And this is how they break it down. So namely, one group sees the other as a bunch of violent, reckless, intrusive, arrogant, self-serving, profane, infidel bullies hiding behind high technology. This is describing the U.S. military and NATO forces. The other group generally so the U.S. NATO, generally views the former as a bunch of cowardly, incompetent, obtuse, thieving, complacent, lazy, pot-smoking, treacherous, and murderous radicals. They're training... I'm sorry?
Now, who's using those words?
This is from a report. It's an unclassified study. It's called A Crisis of Trust and Cultural Incompatibility. And it was written by, his name is Jeffrey Borden. He's a Ph.D. And this was published May 12th, 2011. And a colleague of mine, Bob McCarty, reported on this.
Okay.
And he's actually coming out with a book. And what I just read you is nothing compared to what else he's discovered. So the administration, they know this is happening. This mistrust, you're trying to create peace. Your peace partner is now turning their gun on you. And we can present all sorts of reasons why. You know, one mistake that I think the Obama administration did was when they announced a withdrawal date.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
why would they do that? Because the Taliban has been sitting and counting the days.
Right.
They're counting the days. And in the meantime, they're intimidating the population and they're gaining control.
They can sit back.
But now, but it's even worse because this report, what they describe it is... I want to make sure I'm quoting this properly. It's epidemic murder, what is occurring now in Afghanistan with these green and blue attacks.
Epidemic murder.
Epidemic murder.
All right.
And I encourage you to go to Bob McCarty's website. He actually has the report. You should read it all from top to bottom. And please, it's so important. Everyone talks about supporting the troops. Learn. I mean, personally, I think the best way you can help the troops, and they're not even asked, they so very rarely complain. You know, they really don't, is to shine a spotlight on these policies that are counterproductive and are frankly getting them killed.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, and that what makes things worse, and I want to thank Jason in the chat room for reminding me of this, is that all these wars, you know, are based on lies to begin with, or misrepresentation or the manipulation of events. Well, why are we in Afghanistan? Why have we been there for 10 years? Why are we continuing to do what we're doing in the Middle East through proxy wars? Why are we committing drone wars in 10-plus countries, killing people on a daily basis with remote-controlled planes, sitting back in the pilot in a comfortable chair somewhere in America while dropping bombs? Not only that, but employing now Al-Qaeda tactics by dropping secondary bombs on first responders and the rescuers.
Yeah, Marinka, I mean, it's happening now. It's happening.
I mean, we've turned into everything we said we were against and fighting against. They said that George Bush said that they attacked us for our freedoms. And that was not the case, because we see now they are saying that Al-Qaeda is fighting for the freedoms of, the Middle East.
But Marenko, there's no way we can change. There's no way we could bring democracy to Afghanistan. There's no way we can bring democracy, or modeling our constitutional representative republic to Iraq. Is there?
At this point, no. I wish I could say something different. I think, and this is what is so tragic, because you really have to believe. Yeah, people want to have a peaceful life. They want to raise their children, have families, work. I mean, this is the way things have shaken out right now. I don't know what the answer is to reverse this.
Right.
But I don't think that the administration is serving the military very well with these policies.
Okay.
And so I can't answer all of your questions. Not all the information. I mean, a lot of things get repeated over and over again. Like, people will say, "Well, weapons of mass destruction, it wasn't found in Iraq." Well, that's not true. There actually were. And in fact, there was yellow cake that was found in Iraq.
Yeah,
and folks, they kept it quiet.
I didn't know this. Ladies and gentlemen, I did not know this, and they did a very good job of keeping it quiet. When Marenka and I were talking off air earlier, Marenka, you were talking about a 23,000
acre site, and they had it surrounded by huge sand berms. And that was to conceal it following the looting of Saddam's fall, right? Because they were also afraid that insurgents or terrorist groups would try to pillage it and use it, obviously, for nefarious reasons. Now, it took them a very long time to find a buyer for this, and eventually they did. It's a Canadian company, and it's a uranium producer. It's called Camco. And even just the logistics of moving this yellow cake was, rather daunting. And it was after the shipment, when it came to Canada, did the story become public. Now, you can Google this. Associated Press reported on it. So it's interesting because, some stories catch fire and other stories don't. In my opinion, that's a big story. That's a very big story, considering, too, the whole Joe Wilson incident and the yellow cake in Niger and all of, that went down. Subsequently, there was also WikiLeaks revealed that there were different, there was mustard gas and blister gas was also found. But what is, I don't want to say confusing, when this information came out was around the same time that President George Bush was promoting his book, and he was still apologizing about the weapons of mass destruction. It's like, they found it. You can't not know this.
But see,
he was still apologizing. Yeah, I don't know what to think of that.
Why? Why not? Why? Again, as we talked earlier, when he was making light of this at the National Press Club, saying, "Well, no, they're not. The weapons of mass destruction are not down there." Is this all just a dog and pony show? I mean, why didn't he say, "Look,
I don't know. I believe me, God knows, I wish I could tell you. I don't know. And that's what's so frustrating, because, America's supposed to be free. There's supposed to be transparency. And, just some of the information that we talked about today, it's all upside down, because it doesn't make sense. And not that he needs to take some hero lap and, yeah, I told you so. But you've been vindicated. And you know what? The military has been vindicated.
Exactly.
And that's, to me, frankly, more important. They're the ones that went and sacrificed. And for people who don't have any relationship to the military, you can't imagine the sacrifice. You hear about it, but until you live it, you cannot imagine the sacrifice.
Oh,
and so that's what really upsets me, because for the military, this should have been made a big issue. They've been vindicated.
Yeah. And they put their lives on the line for us, for our freedoms, and they come home to be taken away to mental institutions and labeled as terrorists. We are going to go to the phones, Ms. Peshman, if you do not mind.
Great.
We have some callers on the line. And if you'd like to join the conversation, give us a call at 661-244-9839. That's 661-244-9839. Our special guest is Marenka Peshman.
Author of The Whistleblower.
Yes. And I am going to go get that book on Kindle edition after the show. I have not read it. I've only read parts of my dad's, but I do want to get that, and I saw that on your site today that you had it available on Kindle edition. And
every e-reader format, and paperback, so this way everyone can get it. Mm-hmm.
And Marinka, I snatched that Kindle edition away from Joe right away because I said, look, you got to support Marinka. You got to support our guests. And folks, I got to tell you, look, The Whistleblower. It's a fantastic.
Investigative work takes time. Yeah.
It does. But you know,
a lot of time. Yeah.
I mean, to circle back around with how we opened. You know, this is history repeating itself with the Clintons, but the insight that this book provides is just so fantastic. So I would urge everyone to grab a copy of The Whistleblower. It's certainly well worth to have in your library. But go ahead, Joe, to the phones, and Marinka, thank you for being so gracious to take some calls here.
Yeah, we're going to be going up against a break, so we'll take a call or two, and then we'll hit the break and come back with more calls after the break.
Right.
We're going to start
we
here.
Got a full bank here.
We're going to start here with area code 484. You are on the air with the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Oh, hey, how you doing, Hagmann? This is Jim.
Hey, Jim. How you doing?
Hey, how you doing?
Hi, Jim.
Yeah, I was on with you guys yesterday with Greg and Steve.
Yes.
And I just the thing is, I let my father hear about it, and he's starting to wake up. But the thing is, he didn't sleep last night, I can tell. But I just wanted to make a word of encouragement that the main thing is that it's like a lot of other people are saying, it's more of a war on spiritual warfare that like is causing people not to even just wake up at a lot of these things. And I just had a question. Are you guys following Hurricane Isaac right now?
Yes, I've been. I checked about 5 o'clock is the last article I looked, and they said that there was evacuations in Louisiana and possible flooding. There is flooding in Louisiana, 25 inches of rain. They're calling for evacuations. And the levees, I'm not sure how those are holding up, but I have not seen any bad news coming from that.
But Jim, do you have a question for our guest, Marinka Peshman?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I had a question. Has he ever heard of a guy named Doc Marquise?
Have I? No, I'm afraid I haven't.
Okay.
Why? What's up with that, Jim?
I'll just email you guys about that. It's just a guy that used to be an ex-Illuminati witch and is exposing everything that's going on right now.
All right. Very good, my friend. Thank you very much.
Please send that.
All right.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you, Jim.
And folks, Marinka, author of The Whistleblower, and of course MarinkaPeshman.com. That's MarinkaPeshman.com. If you have questions specific for her experience, for the topics that we're talking about, please give us a call. We'd love to. Marinka has graciously agreed to take your phone calls about her writings, about her time with Linda Tripp, and about her time in the investigation of all the things about Bill and Hillary, and how that's coming back today to bite us.
Yeah, so, and how, I mean, the influence that Hillary Clinton has on our government is, more than I think her husband had when he was president. We're seeing it. We're trying to see if that video clip is ready. Maybe we can play that clip.
The video we talked about off air.
Yeah, from Marinka Peshman's website, or the article here. Bill and Hillary Clinton are moderates next to Obama. Don't fall for that garbage. I'll post that in the chat room. And whenever you're ready, Troy, you can play the video, and we'll go to break.
I don't know if he wants to run the whole video, though, because part of it has just captions.
Okay. In fact, that's the wrong video, isn't it? Or
no.
Is that the video we talked about, Marinka?
Yeah, the one in the...
Yeah, I mean, if you do the first two clips, but it's something that's probably easier for them to watch. I don't know. I mean, if you want to run the first part, I just think when you get to the captions, that's just dead time.
Okay.
So we're looking at... Let's see. I got the video up here.
That's right. Obviously, how are people going to hear the captions?
Yeah. Why don't you just post it on your website and people can watch it? Because I think it's self-explanatory, because you're being deceived. if you think that Bill and Hillary Clinton are moderates.
All right. Yeah, Troy, hold off on that. We're going to post it on the website. Folks, we apologize. It's been just a rough day for all of us here.
Yeah, we'll go to break. We'll come back, take your phone calls.
Marinka, hold on.
And your phone calls and more with Marinka Peshman, our special guest on this Wednesday, August 29th edition of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Stay with us for hour number 2.
We're going to tie this right together, and Marinka, thank you so much for hanging with us. Hold on just a minute, folks. We'll be right back after these.
Survival of the fittest. In any and all situations, survival is your number one priority. That requires being tough and thinking smart. And the folks at Freeze Dry Guy are going to help you do just that. They have the long-range patrol ration entrees, what they call the Brick Pack. When you're in survival mode, it is absolutely the best item for your survival pack or bug-out bag. You can go farther, faster, and carry more food with the LRP cold weather ration entrees. Not only do these long-lasting, durable entrees help sustain you or your family through the harshest environment or situation, they are by far the most delicious of their kind. No contest. With a variety of tasty entrees, you can't beat the LRP Brick Packs. Let Freeze Dry Guy help you in your survival situations. Go to freezedryguy.com. That's freezedryguy.com. Or call 866-404-3663. That's 866-404-FOOD.
Hi folks, Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's CanadaFreePress.com on the Internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Eileen Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at CanadaFreePress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America, there is no free world.
If you're stumped, you don't know what kind of gift to give to a friend or a loved one, I'm telling you, you must go to 4physics.com. That's the numeral 4, PHYSICS.com. This is your one-stop shopping palace. That's the only way I can put it. I could spend easily an hour on this website. Innovative, fun, educational. There are games, books, weather instruments, unique time-telling devices, jewelry, optical devices, laboratory equipment. Let me give you an example. We all know we can tell time with a sundial. You've seen those advertised. Did you know that you could tell time by the stars? At 4physics.com, you can buy a horologium nocturnum. This was a navigational device used in the 15th century by navigators at night to tell time by the stars. It's beautifully crafted in the shape of a pendant made of bronze and pewter or gold and silver. Absolutely a stunning gift. I would be proud to give it to anyone. You must go to 4physics.com. Even if you're not stumped, that's 4physics. That's the numeral 4, PHYSICS.com. It's your one-stop shopping palace. Any problems that you have, I don't know what to get Grandpa, I don't know what to get my loved one, that's unique, you will find it at 4physics.com. Please take my word for it. Go to the website, but give yourself a lot of time because you're not going to want to leave. 4physics.com.
You better wake up fast and listen to this, America. The Obama campaign has launched attack squads disguised as truth teams dedicated to intimidating and silencing all political dissent carried over the Internet that criticizes the Marxist Obama. Truth Squad specifically focused on covering up Obama's endless trail of lies, corruption, and subversion, and using the Gestapo power of our own government to police and censor the Internet and shut down websites that dare to carry the real truth about Obama's Marxist coup. Remember the names of these Gestapo-style agencies that work right there in your neighborhood. KeepingHisWord.com, KeepingGOPHonest.com, and AttackWatch.com. KGB, SS, and Gestapo-style police-state gangster organizations that work to silence the important voices of patriot dissent, some of which have already been shut down by Obama's orders. Adolf Hitler would have been proud. We're the 21st century Tea Party Patriots.
Doug Hagmann. One guy that doesn't need a bullhorn to get your attention.
You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Hey, welcome back, folks. Hour number 2 of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Marinka Peshman is our special guest. Visit her website, marinkapeshman.com. We're going to have an article about Marinka in our interview up here on our home site at homelandsecurityus.com. Thanks for joining us, and Marinka, thank you for being such a wonderful sport. We're all over the board here. It almost seems like an unscripted, kind of a willy-nilly interview here, and I have to apologize after today. I think it's like a couple of monkeys fighting over a banana in both of our skulls. So please accept our apologies if we sound a little bit disjointed in our questioning, but in our interview skills. But you've given us a lot of information, but I've got to come back to something. Are you back with us, Marinka?
Oh, you know what? I have to fix it.
Okay. Here we go.
There she is.
Sorry, we cut you off, Marinka. I'm sorry about that. Are you back with us, dear?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Well, you were talking to yourself there for a while, weren't you?
Oh, it was brilliant. I'm sorry you missed it.
I'm sorry we did too. And again, my apologies to you and to our listeners, because it seems like we're all over the board here with questions, and it's just, again, the scenario of, if you can picture two monkeys fighting over a banana in both of our skulls right now, after the day that we've had. But that's no excuse. But I've got to go back to something you said here, and I guess the core issue, if we're looking at you, Marinka, as a journalist, and the big picture of things, we like to look at the big picture, whether it's about the troops, whether it's about the wars, whether it's about the lies and the deceit of the Clinton administration, whether it's about the Clintons still being in power, we still see, and I guess to grab onto the big golden ring that's out there and say, this is what is really going on. How do we tie this all together? I guess that's my, it seems like we've gone from the 90s to 2012 with a continuity of agenda here. The Clintons had this disdain for the troops, didn't they?
Yeah. Yes, they did.
Now we've got Obama that's got this disdain for the troops, and in the middle we had rah for the troops, but sent them out as cannon fodder with restricted rules of engagement.
I'd also like to point out, a lot of people may not remember, during the Clinton era when he sent troops for Bosnia,
right?
They were under UN control.
See,
and
Now, Marinka, that's something. How can we possibly and feel my frustration, please? Feel my frustration. How can we possibly allow this to happen to our men and women in uniform, to put them under UN control? In any,
it's wrong. Yeah, it's wrong. They didn't take an oath to the UN. They took an oath to the United States of America.
Okay, all right. But is this the brainchild of? I mean, this didn't happen overnight, and of course, this acquiescence to these rules of engagement, which are more UN-ish, I guess. Wouldn't you classify that?
Yeah, Well, because the UN troops, they have a very hard time, too. They can't defend themselves.
Okay. All right, but I don't know. I'm just looking at this from the larger picture perspective.
Well, the larger picture, it's the ideology. It's their progressive ideology. It's the social justice where they know how everyone should live. I don't know how else to sum it up. It's they know better than everybody else on how they should live their lives. And, you want to say, well, no, they don't want to hurt the country. I don't know how you can say the opposite anymore. And just based on the facts, stay out of the twilight zone. It's almost as if whatever the Clinton administration did, they laid down this groundwork. And it's just been accelerated now with the Obama administration. But then in between, there were some things that Bush did that you could go, okay, I get it. And then on the other side, there were other things where you're just like, wow, how did that happen? And I wish I had the answers. I don't. But we can see that America's being weakened right now. I can't imagine anyone disputing that except, a few, maybe Chris Matthews. I'm not sure, but...
Thanks for that. No,
I know we need a little levity because it frankly doesn't make sense, but we have to stop. We can't keep our head in the sand. And right now, especially because of that the troops we know are being targeted in country, please know they're also being targeted out of country. And don't forget about them because they need the support of the American public right now. There seems to me to be such a divide between the American people and the ruling elite. We've got two completely different agendas. Now, I'm with the people, so...
As we all are who are listening, except those who have implanted themselves, in our midst. But one question...
Well, I could... Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go on.
Well, I was just going to say, I can't imagine sending anyone into war under these conditions. How do you sleep at night? I don't know.
I mean, I have an idea with that one. I know that these people, most of them, seem to be Luciferians worshiping evil, having their ceremonies of the cremation of care where they burn, effigies of human beings to, get rid of the cares with their satanic rituals. And these people are the synagogue of Satan, in my opinion, as it's described in the book of Revelation.
And Marika, you might think that might be way out there, and some listeners might think, oh my gosh, that's kind of, really, really kind of a outlandish description. But I was talking to a Gold Star mother who had explained to me that her son obviously was basically executed, okay? Yeah. But what wasn't said was that her son was involved in the practice of carrying briefcases full of money to these village mullahs, if you will, the village leaders, these leaders of the Muslim village.
They've been doing that for years. They did that in Iraq too. There were suitcases of money. Mm-hmm.
Why? What does a suitcase of money buy us? By the troops, by the army, or whatever.
The cooperation. I think that was the initial intent.
Okay.
But once the money dries up, where does the cooperation go? You can't buy loyalty and trust. I mean, you can. It's a temporary buy, but once the money dries up, they're going to turn on you.
Okay, that's and even.
It's a false peace. It's a false cooperation. I think that's what we're seeing, right?
Well, that's exactly right. Now we've got Dan in Cleveland asking this question, if you don't mind, because something I don't know, he dropped off our phone line. He said, please ask Marika, what, if she can comment, what is there, if any, relationship between Hillary Rodham Clinton, the Muslim Brotherhood, Obama, Iraq, Afghanistan policy? Boy, how's that for a question?
Well, we could go in a few directions there. Andrew McCarthy, he was one of the prosecutors on the Blind Cheek with the First World Trade Center bombing. And he's put together a lot of information about the connection with Huma and the Muslim Brotherhood, and I would definitely refer you to read that.
Okay.
Because I think he's very succinct, and he comes from such a knowledgeable base that he can say it much better than I can. What troubles me greatly, because we hear from this administration, they're all about freedom and women and children. We have to look to Iran. Now, Iran, when the Iranian people, they were the first to rise up. And they were begging for help, begging. And this was a revolution of the people. Remember, Where's My Vote? The Green Revolution. This is where women came out. And, we didn't see that necessarily, especially not at those levels in other areas. And the Obama administration, now again, Iran, the state sponsor of terrorism, we know was meddling, we always use that word meddling,
right.
But it means trying to kill American soldiers and NATO, coalition forces in Iraq and Afghanistan. So there's a lot of blood. This is a regime. Every week they chant, death to America. And so when the people rose up, the Obama administration decided, we're not going to meddle. We're not going to get involved. And these brave protesters were slaughtered. We saw it. They were begging for help, begging. There's all sorts of YouTube videos. Please watch it. History would be very different. I mean, I would imagine there were a lot of former U.S. presidents who prayed for that opportunity, because what an opportunity to peacefully alleviate the issue of their weapons program by having regime change with the help of the Iranian people. The Iranian people are actually very pro-Western.
Right.
The issue is not with the people of Iran. It's with the leadership. And the Obama administration did nothing. And instead, they meddle, I use that word because that's their word, with regimes not perfect, not great, but at minimum were at least allies of the U.S. and not direct threats.
Okay.
So we have to look at the facts. Everything is upside down. One would think they would have definitely have gone into Iran to help the Iranian people.
Okay.
But they didn't.
That kind of segues in. I'm sorry. That kind of segues into a question from Chris from Enid, Oklahoma. Again, Chris from Enid, Oklahoma asks this: what role? Please ask Marinka. What role does Valerie Jarrett have over the state, over Hillary Clinton in the State Department and Iran? I believe what he's trying to ask is, based on your investigation, your knowledge of Hillary Clinton, now part of the Obama administration, in particular having Huma as well as a body person or as a chief of staff or whatever her position might be, and having Valerie Jarrett in the White House.
Well, it actually goes back to the ideology, and so the YouTube video that you're going to put on your website, it opens with a clip of President Clinton speaking in Davos, and he admires the Iranian elections because they consistently vote 70% for his people that he associates with. Progressive liberals. So there's a kinship of this ideology. It's a very controlling, dominant ideology. So I'm going to just separate the Islam issue for the sake of this conversation for now, because if you look at this progressive, it's a very controlling ideology. They know how everyone should live, and they like that. I mean, you must listen to his own words. Hillary Clinton originally called President Assad in Syria a reformer.
Oh.
So these are people that they admired. And of course, when it got so bad, then they have to change. It's a court of public opinion. It doesn't reflect their heart. That's the difference. So again, by their fruits you shall know them. So I keep harping on this, but it really is the ideology. Once you understand the ideology, then it starts to make sense. And it's not an ideology that holds the Constitution sacred, God, country. That's not part of their ideology.
Wow.
So I hope I'm answering the question.
No,
as far as Valerie Jarrett comes into play, we know that Hillary has a weekly call with Obama, which a lot of the other cabinet members don't have. I don't know what her relationship is with Valerie Jarrett, but we know that it was with Hillary and Samantha Powers that apparently, pushed Obama to make the decision to go into Libya and so on and so forth. And my guess is, Obama doesn't make a decision without Valerie Jarrett. So
Okay, if you don't mind, say that one more time. Who pushed Obama to go into Libya or helped him in that direction?
Hillary and Samantha Powers.
Okay, all right.
And Samantha Powers is the wife of Cass
Sunstein,
who recently, left the White House. And they have another, and it's the ideology and their way of looking at the world. And they, of course, justified it as, humanitarian, and we have to go in there. But the true intent was regime change. And look, we saw when Gaddafi was killed, what did Hillary say? We came, we saw, we killed her. I mean, it was just wow.
It was a pretty disgusting display of non-diplomatic behavior, in my estimation. But
Marinka, we have some callers on the line. If you don't mind,
not at all.
We'll take a few here. All right, we are going to go to area code 305, and then we'll go to Jason. Area code 305. You're on with the Hagmann and Hagmann report.
And Marinka Peshman.
Hi.
Hello.
Well,
Hello.
Do you have a question for Marinka?
Yes, I do. Marinka, I just wanted to ask you the connection between Hillary, the Rose Law Firm, Linda Tripp, and the death of Vince Foster. And is that connected to the Monsanto lawsuit that was through the Rose Law Firm, which is now Monsanto seems to have a real toehold into the White House and is taking over with the GMO foods and kind of running out all the small farmers? So that's kind of my question, the mystery of Vince Foster and his death, and how after he died, standing from the Washington Memorial, you could see written on the lawn, Foster murder, and it was written in fertilizer. And I just seem to, in my mind, see a real connection here with the Monsanto takeover and the big profits being made with running out all the small farmers and taking over the farmlands, and this major drought that's going on that's running small farmers out of business. That's it.
Okay. Thanks.
That's quite a question. The Monsanto connection, I have to be honest, I'm not overly familiar with. Were they representing Monsanto in Arkansas before they went into the before?
Yeah, Monsanto.
This was before they were elected, right? Before they were elected. Okay. Oh, well, then that would make sense. Yeah, there are many problems with the Vince Foster investigation, and I think the most troubling one that everyone can agree with is the White House unequivocally did everything they could to obstruct the investigation, both in the White House and, again, at the location where his body was found. And it was really, and I read about this in the whistleblower, where freedom of speech came under fire because you weren't allowed to ask common sense questions about this case. If you did, you were attacked, you were vilified, you were marginalized. So hopefully one day we'll have the true story of what happened. Now, Linda worked with Vince Foster in Hillary's counsel's office. She was not associated with the Rose Law Firm. She worked directly with Bernie Nussbaum, who was also counsel to the president. But the question that's never been answered, because, of course, we're not allowed to ask questions about the Vince Foster case, and they tried to blame his death on the Wall Street Journal editorial department, as well as depression, was we know that Vince handled the Clintons' personal affairs. Even though his job was to serve the American people, we know this. This has been confirmed time and time again from even people within the administration. So the question, obvious, and maybe you are onto something that I need to look into, frankly, because...
Yes, would you please?
Why would a man... Yeah.
Intense. I mean, I'm just like this. If you look at the connection with Monsanto and all the people that are now in the White House, that are in power, and they all seem to be profiting off of Monsanto, and Monsanto is currently taking over the world with big farming and just kind of mowing everybody over and forcing everybody into the GMO, and big profits are being made. And it just seems to think a trail going way, way back.
Oh, it always does. It always does. And I've read the same reports, too, of how they sue farmers if the wind blows and some of their stands cross-pollinate, I mean, they cannot control the wind, and it's just frankly outrageous what they're doing to some of the farmers.
Yeah, indeed.
And the lawsuit connects down to a town down in the south. I don't know if it was Louisiana or whatever. I'd have to go back into my notes. But they were being sued for running toxins out into the brooks and stuff down there, and the people got really sick with cancer and everything, and it was a big cover-up through that law firm and everything, and of course people died. So are you saying but the Rose Law Firm represented is that what you're saying? They represent? Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, and now they're all in the White House with Monsanto taking over.
Yeah, I mean, it's no coincidence, to be sure, and obviously there's a lot to be investigated there, Sheila. My goodness,
a lot of money being made, and he who controls the food rules the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right. I have to look into that.
Okay, thanks.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Put me back on hold.
Okay, yeah, we will.
Thank you so much.
We will.
Calling in. Okay. All right, we're going to take another call. This is Jason, I believe. Jason, you are on the air with the Hagmann and Hagmann Report and Marinka Peshman.
Yes, it is Jason. And, Joe, thank you. God bless you so much for taking my call. Thank you, Joe.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, Jason, for calling.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyway, now, if I understand correctly, Miss Peshman, you lost your son to the war?
No,
that's not what happened.
No, not at all. Miss Peshman is the author of The Whistleblower, and Jason, you might have heard me talk about a Gold Star mother. It's got two separate.
Oh, okay. All right, I apologize for that, but I was just asking because I didn't want to insult her because I want to understand. Just let me ask this quick question. Who do you think did 9/11?
Jason, I'll tell you what. Look, buddy, let's not go there right now, only because we have a limited
time. All right. Okay. All right. God bless you guys. Bye.
God bless you. Marinka, look, we got. I mean, there's a lot of ground we can cover with that, but.
Yeah, that's a topic for other people that know that report on that, and I always prefer to stick to my actual reporting.
Right,
because then I can back that up with confidence and experience. And,
right.
And I think because a lot of people, they're very quick to comment on things that they've heard, but unless you've actually investigated it,
and that's
you should kind of sit back and until you have all the facts. Yeah.
And that's one thing I respect about you, but believe me, I respect Jason a lot. But I respect you a lot too, and you are focused. You've got a very good focus on your, the invest. It'd be like me trying to comment on an investigation I really didn't conduct, and well,
and that's the problem with journalism or so-called journalism, because it's much easier to do opinion than it is to do investigative work. And I've learned, especially with this case, with the story I read about in The Whistleblower, I mean, both sides were wrong about the story. And this was it's a huge story. It changed history.
Right. And
so I always proceed with caution, because until you've personally dealt with it, you could be thrown a curveball.
Yeah, indeed. And, and end up... well, it's just it's a very it's a minefield out there, really.
It is truly, and with Linda, because I remember it's you when you meet somebody, you just know what you try to walk in with an open mind, but obviously you're affected with media reports and what you've seen on television, and they really created a cartoon character of a person that didn't frankly exist. And you could see that right away after spending not even a lot of time with her, and you just go, okay, wait a minute. Right. And then ultimately both sides were wrong. I mean, she truly protected the Clintons. So if you want to play politics, the left should have celebrated her.
Yeah.
And the right should have been upset with her, but instead it went the other way. And that's what happens when you manufacture stories and the narrative and people. So, yeah, you got to proceed with caution with that.
That's one thing, look, I know this is kind of off topic in a way, but what was it like dealing with her? I mean, with Linda Tripp?
Well, we met in disguise. Whenever we met in disguise. And the reason for that was she was concerned that anything she would try to do, the Clintons would try to sabotage.
Yeah.
And for me, at the time, I was going to write under a pen name because, for me, it's not about me. It's about the work. It's about the story. I mean, you see, even now, it's like I don't like seeing myself on TV. I'm happier on the radio. It's so I was totally hip to play along, and literally we met in disguise. And people may not recall this, but she had so many death threats at the time that in the middle of the night, agents from the FBI and the Office of Independent Counsel grabbed her from her home and put her into a safe house. It was a residential hotel, and they took her wig shopping. So she had her wigs from the FBI. This is what happens when you're an American citizen and you get into the crosshairs with some of these, with the President of the United States and his lovely wife.
I don't even know what to.
Laugh, but, yeah.
How do you even? I don't even know what to say to that. Honestly, I mean.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I have to say, because initially I thought, okay.
And it seems like we lost audio. I don't know if that was all of our audio or just our caller. People in chat, if you could still hear us, let us know. Because
I can hear you.
Oh, there we go. We're back. I'm not exactly certain what happened there, but little gremlins. We've got good equipment. We've got a good signal and or a good connection. And I apologize, but wow, it's amazing that you've got to go through there. People have to go through this. Basically, to be in the WITSEC program to tell the truth, and
Oh yeah, it really was a cloak and dagger adventure. It really was, and it was funny because you have all these little stories. We're at like the grocery store and we're just picking up a few things, and some of the cashiers would recognize her. And I remember one time, one saying, "Your disguise last week was better." You just have these silly moments, And I had was a wig that was kind of like a bad version of Jane Seymour. And I had a pregnant lady disguise. And every time I'd see her, with the time frame, I'd add more foam and add more foam. So for me, it was like, oh, I can't carry that. I'm pregnant, So you have to have levity in all of this. But it's deadly serious. I mean, we were driving in Baltimore at one point, and she got lost, and she panicked. And I said, relax. I'll just pull down the window, ask for directions. She goes, no. They hate me here. It's all Democrats. I said, come on, Linda. I mean, I'm looking out the window. People minding their business, going about their business, kids playing on the street, no problems. But this was no act. I mean, the damage that the politics of personal destruction, I cannot tell you what it does. And literally, I mean, her heart was racing, and she ended up calling her lawyer for directions because I said, I rolled down the window. She turned her head to ask for directions. And the person who I asked, didn't know, and she called her lawyer, and it was just, behind the windows, put down the hat, terrified. It is a horrible way to live. I don't know if you ever feel safe after receiving those kind of death threats.
Well,
and the media attention that she received. I mean, it's terrible.
Well,
and it was heartbreaking to see.
Yeah, I guess that's what happens when you. When you go against the chief executive of the United States and his wife, to get on their bad side.
No, and unfortunately for whistleblowers, we got to be honest. There is no safe haven. The government, they talk about, we protect whistleblowers, and there's whistleblower protection acts. Look what happened to the Fast and Furious whistleblowers. Shut down. They retaliate. So. In the same breath, though, with what's happening in government and all the problems and the reports we're getting out of the DHS and so forth, now is the time that people actually have to stand.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. You have to be prepared to walk away, and you are on your own. I mean, there are people, there's journalists, there's other whistleblowers that will help you. The government's not going to help you. I wish I could tell you it's different, but it's not.
When you say the government's not going to help you, you mean any federal agencies like the FBI and any good guys, so to speak. They're not going to help you.
Well, I mean, in Linda's case, she had some help originally from the FBI and the Office of Independent Counsel, but ultimately, and that was for, and at that time it was critical, and they definitely protected her, and she needed protection, but there will come a time where you're on your own.
Yeah.
So, and I don't want to dissuade people from speaking out because, someone who speaks out, you speak out, Joe, you speak out. You have to make a decision how you want to live your life, and you have to draw a line in the sand because looking the other way, the problems are just getting worse. And what kind of world do you want to live in? Because I don't want to live under the thumb of any of the Clintons, Obama, this progressive ideology. I don't agree with it. I don't want anything to do with it.
Well, and nor do we. And Mario from Brooklyn, has sent me an email asking me to ask you about the whistleblowers under Obama, how Obama cracked down on the whistleblowers, and you kind of answered that, I guess, in a way.
You're on your own, but you have to do the right thing, and this is what really concerns me. And it was the same, people, they thought I was exaggerating when Hillary, during the primaries, right? And how she dug in. She was not going to concede. She fought and she fought and she fought. And I kept saying, she has to. They have to stay in power because if they're out of power, they could actually be indicted. And for me, it was such a lost opportunity when the Bush administration came in because everyone played nice. They all extended bipartisan hands and everyone made deals. Well, because no one was held accountable. We have Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State. We have Eric Holder as Attorney General at the Department of Justice. There's consequences for this. So for me, it's they need to stay in power because if they're out of power, they could actually be held accountable. So they will dig in. They definitely, and Obama's going to dig in. Brace yourself.
I mean, just for looking at this through a historical perspective from U.S. presidents, George Bush, for one, Bill Clinton, these people have committed crimes and were not prosecuted. The way I see it is that they have immunity. They will, what is it that the presidents do when they come in or right before they leave? The next president always pardons
Pardons.
Yeah.
And there's definitely a special justice system. There is. And that's the complete opposite of America, because if you or I pulled what the Clintons and Obamas pulled, we would have been put in jail or held in contempt years ago.
That's right.
So there definitely is, and that's another reason why people have to stand up. Do you want to live under this? Because before people could ignore it. Well, it didn't affect me. It's affecting everybody now.
It is.
So now is the time. People need to stand. And the one thing with Linda, document. If she didn't document, and if Monica Lewinsky didn't document, they would have been completely destroyed, as opposed to at least now having a chance. Completely destroyed. They had no problem. I mean, even Monica, she was this young girl, and they created this whole this whispering campaign. She was mentally unstable. Where did we hear that? Now we're hearing that with the vets.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter where you are. Nobody is immune, and you could be next. Do you think Monica Lewinsky thought that the White House would start a whispering campaign that she was a nut job? Do you think the military who serve their country honorably, taken extraordinary risks, followed orders, would come home to be called nut jobs by this administration? People have got to wake up. You have to stand. It's not easy. We know from experience, but you have to stand.
Yeah, indeed. We got a question.
I got a question,
go ahead.
Ms. Peshman. In Clinton, before the Monica Lewinsky scandal came out, if I recall the details of the story correctly, they had announced that somebody with the initials ML, I think it was.
There was a White House intern that worked at Starbucks in Georgetown.
Yeah. This Starbucks was 6 employees, I think, all were killed.
Yeah, you're referring. There's a list of people that have circulated that apparently it's what they call the Clinton body count.
Yeah.
And that specific Starbucks case that always sticks with me whenever I think about it.
There were arrests made on that, but I think the individual that's asking the question wants to know if you have any particular. Am I right? If you have any particular knowledge about or anything to say about that? About the Starbucks?
No, I just know it's the arrest. Same thing as you.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. Okay, and I do have another question from somebody who sent me yet another email. By the way, Bruce from, I don't know if that's Bruce from Minnesota. He said he's going to buy your book. Thanks, Bruce.
You.
But he's got a question. How much influence does Bill Clinton have currently in the Obama administration with respect to policy? It's a straightforward.
I don't know how much about policy, but he's definitely a big part of the smoke and mirrors. And I say that because I don't really see that they have big different policy issues. But I see that Bill is being presented as a moderate, right?
Right, as a
statesman.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's where your difference is. But look, he sent troops and they fought under the UN. So does he have a problem with Obama ceding sovereignty to the UN? No. No, they have the same ideology.
Okay. Yeah, I think that was more of a and Bruce, thank you. I just from looking at that, I think that was more of a, how much influence in policy does Clinton have, and I suppose Marika, we've talked about this too, about the progressive ideology and essentially the globalist agenda, if you will. I mean, being very much on parallel tracks, if not facilitating one another, but yeah, it's I don't know. I'm haunted by this parallel agenda between the progressives, the communists in this, and the
well, look at Hillary Care. Hillary Care is Obamacare. It's the same thing. So to try to repackage them as moderates, it's lunacy. They try to do the same thing Obama has done. And how do they accomplish it? Backroom deals. It was Pelosi who has the same ideology. She shouldn't care about the rule of law.
No.
We know they bribe people and senators for the votes. We know there were all sorts of backroom deals. They don't have a problem with breaking the law. So that's why now you must stand up, because you could be next.
No, indeed.
Right. And the people who don't stand up or are indifferent in this spiritual battle that's being waged upon this nation are just as bad, in my opinion, as the people helping carry out this agenda, because as we move further into this, there's a direct line right down the middle, and you're coming to a point where you're going to have to make a decision. You just can't stand idly by anymore. And, what are these people going to do who have been denying the truth the whole time, who have been, listening to pastors who won't, speak the true gospel and tell the whole truth? I just fear that the federal assistance will be taken away, the society will be slowly shut down or quickly shut down, and, there will be civil war followed by, DHS government coming in, cleaning up afterwards. I just don't see any other way around this.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I hope it won't get to be that drastic, but I do know not to speak is to speak. So, looking the other way, you can humor yourself. But and see, that's kind of why the Linda story is important, because she looked the other way. This was a God-fearing, patriotic woman. And she would justify it, my job, my pension, my kids, over and over again. And she watched the Clintons destroy people. Trump up charges, indict Billy Dale from the travel office, for example. He went to work. He wasn't even in their crosshairs to his knowledge. And she didn't speak up. So then when it happened to her, well, how can you be surprised? You didn't speak up for him. Kathleen Willey was another person. And so part of the message of the book is your time will come. You might buy yourself some time, but it will blow up in your face. And if I can reach, especially some people in the government now, what's going on. Document it. You must stand, because if you think you're immune to mayhem, injury, a criminal indictment, God knows what else, you're not. Linda thought she was. She was a team player. They weren't going to do that to her. She had been loyal. Yeah. She had testified as she was told to. She followed orders. How many times do we hear that? Oh, I was following orders. Well, if you know it's against the law, so that makes it okay?
Because you're following orders? Yeah, that's not right.
When you serve under corruption, you become just as corrupt. And that is a big message of this book. And people. There's so many people right now who are privy to things, and I just pray that they have the courage to document and to protect themselves and to step forward.
Marinka, I've got one last question here for you. This comes from out of Nebraska, and Beverly from Nebraska. Let me ask, or she asked, and I want to ask you this as well. Do you think regardless of who gets in November, do you think anything will change? And I suspect that means government the modus operandi.
Yeah, well, I think that, for myself personally, hypothetically, let's say Mitt Romney wins, I will be very busy investigating his administration. And, the government, too, has gotten so big, you have all those careerists.
Right.
So when administrations change, the politicals leave. So that changes. But you have a lot of careerists that are entrenched in government who have served there for many years. Now, there's two schools of thought. In some areas, that's helpful because they know the way things work and they know how to get their job done. In another sense, if they have a different agenda, it could be a problem. Or if they've held on to their job by looking the other way. There was a report that came out of the GAO recently that talked about low morale at government agencies, and I just had to laugh because it's yeah, of course. They can't even do their jobs properly right now. Imagine working in immigration.
Oh.
Imagine you work for ICE, and the President of the United States, under his administration, his director, issues this memo. They're legislating by memo now, okay?
That's right.
You can't make this up. For discretion when it comes to prosecuting for deportations. Well, you've created a lawlessness. They cannot do their jobs.
No.
What's it like going to work every day with your hands tied? Because you can be reprimanded.
Yeah,
So you think there's low morale in the government? Yes, you're surprised by that? Of course.
Well, wow. Yeah, exactly. No, so what you're saying is the faces, names will change, but everything else is going to basically, the infrastructure that has been built and has been entrenched is going to stay the same.
Yeah, there's a lot of cleanup that needs to be done.
Right.
I think some people think, if we can get rid of Obama, it's all going to be okay. We're not out of the woods.
No.
There's problems on both sides, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's problems with Washington as a whole. Think about these people. Remember remember when the DMV got a really bad rap, for being a miserable place? Well, there's other federal agencies that make the DMV look like Disneyland. Have you visited any of these agencies lately? You should.
Yeah, and for example, you want to give me an example?
Yeah, the USCIS. Absolutely. Me, I love reporting on immigration and the crime and
corruption. I was wondering if that was going to come up.
I do that for sport. It's so easy. It's pathetic. It's another federal official was indicted for taking a bribe. Shocking.
Exactly.
Hey, Marinka, we have another caller on hold. Do you want to take this last call here before we end the show?
Sure.
Why not? Well, why hold back now?
Area code 757. You're on the air with the Hagmann and Hagmann Report and Marinka Peshman.
Hi. It's an honor to speak with all of you this evening. I got in 30 minutes late tonight, but I wanted to ask, is there any more investigations going on involving John Wheeler's mysterious death? He was associated with the Vietnam War, or most known for that. And I'll just take my answer off the air.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Marinka.
Thanks for your call.
Yeah, Marinka, what do you know about John Wheeler? Yeah, that was a really odd case, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was very bizarre. I don't have any independent investigation that I could, speak to. I wish I could. But yeah, that's another troubling case. Yeah.
Yeah, and all right. So for the caller, for the sake of the caller, we'll just tell you right now. Okay, that's Marinka does not have the investigative focus on that. Now we've done articles about Jack Wheeler and about his wanderings, and this happened. I believe it was December of '09, I think, where he was found.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of suspicion, a lot of theory behind that, and we've gotten some emails about his behavior and his activities right before that. So, folks, if look, we can't. I mean,
did you have a chance to see the autopsy report and the toxicology reports?
If I did, I don't recall specifically. Did you? I don't believe I.
Yeah, because people just don't start acting strangely out of the blue like that.
Yeah, I don't think they. If I recall correctly, I don't believe there was a toxicology report released. I'll have to double check that for the listeners, and for the caller. But yeah, I mean, there's so many strange things happening, and we talked off air about the body counts associated with Clinton and now Obama. Marika, are you afraid for your life? This is coming from me now.
No, I mean, I had some problems initially. Like, Linda's lawyer ended up, when the truth became negotiable, I walked away from the project, which was not easy. But she was initially, when I met her, she was going to, come clean. She was facing criminal charges,
right?
And in a situation like that, a book can hurt you, or it can put you in jail, or it can exonerate you. You have to be accurate. Well, when the charges were dropped, suddenly, we could negotiate with the truth, and she would focus far more on the gossipy stuff, and it's like, no, that's not. I mean, if you want to write that, you can write that, but I'm not going to have anything to do with that, especially considering when I know what really happened. Are you kidding? Then I'm covering up for the Clintons. I'm not going to live my life like that. And so long story short, her lawyer called me, accused me of sabotaging her book in the Washington Post, and when something like that happens, when it becomes public, strange things do happen, yeah. And there definitely were concerns, and you do take precautions, definitely, yeah. But right now, I'm good.
Good.
And God willing, I'll stay that way, yeah.
Well, I know that you've gotten a lot of flack over the truth. Anytime someone gets over close to a target, they get a lot of flack, and of course,
well, they try to shut you down. Yeah, that's all they can do. They hope no one's paying attention, and they're good at that. I mean, look what's coming out of the RNC. They're talking about, some absurd and ridiculous comments from some journalists, and you're just like, okay, that's the news. Look what's going on in America right now, but that's the news.
Yeah,
indeed.
It is like it's not even news. It's just
I'm being facetious.
It's the country has ADD when it comes to news stories, and the worst part about it is they just take the newscaster's word for it. I mean, even now, I'm sure every American has had to have heard how bad and how much the mainstream media lies at least 2 or 3 times in their lifetime. You'd think by now they'd start to look into things for themselves, but unfortunately...
Or they stop watching, yeah. They're still watching. Oh, I can't trust them, but what happened? I know.
It's unbelievable. It makes me, so frustrated. I mean, how can you help people? You lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. Yeah. And that's how I feel about the people who fall in this, trap they're in.
Marika,
Well, that's one of the reasons why I wrote The Whistleblower, because it's hopefully it's comprehensive. People who are perplexed, what happened to Washington? Well, when you read the book, you'll see what happened to Washington and why it's broken.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
Start making sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you just buzzed out there for a second. I got to tell you, I want to thank you so much for your generous gift of your time tonight. And I know, again, we were kind of scattered all over the place, but folks, you got to get your hands on a copy of The Whistleblower. It is basically a template for what's going on today and a historical accounting of what happened in the Clinton administration. Marika,
thanks for having me.
Any closing thoughts? Words of wisdom? Pieces of advice?
Stand, but also protect yourself. Document, make copies, and just do the right thing, because you look where we are now in this world. It's been too easy for people to just look the other way.
Oh, yeah.
And now we're in trouble. And evil it starts small. During the Clinton era, there were a few people so they indicted a few people, and they smeared a few people, and look how it's grown.
Right. And yeah, and I'm not going to expand on that. You've done that. That's perfect. I'll leave it at that.
I have one more question from somebody in chat. They ask, how do you keep the attack dogs off of you? That we know the government disappears people for speaking their secrets and putting them under the investigation and the spotlight. What do you do to make sure you remain safe?
Well, I do the same thing that you guys do. You take precautions.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you have to live your life, right?
Yep.
we're only here for one round, so I'm not trying to be cavalier. Sometimes it can be very disturbing, but right now I'm good. And unfortunately, I've worked other tough stories that ended up in, where I received some threats. And through experience, you learn how to adjust your life accordingly.
Well,
we can't tell you our secrets. We can't.
I mean, I can. I watch my back.
I can't tell you, but we take precautions. Yes.
I watch my back. I stay protected, and I try not to take the same route twice on my normal.
But what I think helps is the more vocal you are, it's harder for them to then get you.
Yeah, and we were talking about that at length today. People say, well, if your story or if your accounting is so vital, then they could just wipe you off the map. Yeah, that's probably.
Well, yeah, but that's why you have to. I mean, that's why I put out the book, because it's like, God forbid something happens to me. I mean, here's the information. So it's like there's other stories I want to get out, and you have these morbid talks. I mean, they really are. But God forbid, if something were to happen or look like an accident, my friends know you have to look at the stories I've been working on lately, and that's where you have to look.
Wow. Well, Marinka, thank you for being so gracious for your time, and I know that you're a busy lady, and you've got a lot of irons in the fire, so we're not going to impose upon you any longer. I want to thank you again. Folks, the name of the book is The Whistleblower, and Marinka Peshman's site will be accessible off our website. That's marinkapeshman.com, but it'll be accessible via Homeland Security. Marinka, thank you. Thank you for being.
Well, thank you, and God bless. Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Folks, that was Marinka Peshman, and I got to tell you something.
What a fantastic lady!
Yeah, she's a great girl. She's a good friend, and the book is well worth the read because it's really gives you insight into today's.
Yeah,
and let me just say one thing, if I can, real quick, and then I'm going to shut up. It's kind of unfair when we have a person on. And with all due respect to Jason, thank you very much for your call. But with all due respect to the guest, look, we've got to stick to in my opinion, everything is fair game. But with respect to what she came on to talk about, she did not investigate the 9/11 aspect, and I just want to say that.
I do know where Jason was coming from because, some people, we try to certain questions, or the way they answer certain questions, or it's a way to gauge where they are. Maybe that's not something that she focuses on at all. Maybe she hasn't looked into it, but it does give people an idea of how informed, or at least informed to the point where both sides of the story, I guess.
Well, no, and I understand the reasoning behind that very much. So I do. I understand that the reasoning behind that. But the issue I had was, we were kind of focused on a rather narrow subject matter, and although that to some that's a litmus test, I think sometimes it can be, if not given enough time, it could be misconstrued or misunderstood by people. So
yeah, you guys,
we're on a time crunch here.
Yeah. Tomorrow, Keith Hansen.
Oh, you want to talk about a powerful guy?
Yeah. Our guest that was on tonight, Marinka, was on his show on the 25th of August, just a few days ago. My father was on the week ago from Saturday.
That's right.
And I have not spoken with this gentleman yet, but I am really looking forward to the show tomorrow.
He's a guy that came up like me, believing in the official line of everything, believing, and all of a sudden you get smacked on the side of the head, you get woken up, and all of a sudden you say, "Hey, wait a minute, we have to start questioning things." That's who Keith Hansen. He's a patriot to the nth degree. He's a former law enforcement. He's got a lot of good information. He's a wonderful talker.
90 seconds.
Naples, Florida, and up-and-coming, fantastic talk show host. But again, he's got a lot of great information about current events, about a lot to say about the Agenda 21, the New World Order, where we're at. It's just a whole cornucopia of information.
And with this last minute we have, I want to cover just two stories. You guys have to look into these yourselves. I'll cover the headlines. West Nile virus cases rise 40%.
60 seconds.
This was updated today at 1:57 p.m. Cases are up 40% since last week, on pace to beat the record they had in 02-03. Also,
how could that be we're in a drought? Go on.
Also, Russian expert predicts Obama will declare martial law in America by the end of 2012. This is by OccupyCorporatism.com. That's Russian expert predicts Obama will declare martial law in America by 2012. Go check out those articles. Hopefully tomorrow we can get into some more news, some more of your calls with Keith Hansen. Don't miss it. Regular time, 8 to 10 p.m. And we just want to thank every single person who has prayed for us, has spread the word about the show, who's donated, who streams the show, who posts the link.
10 seconds.
Cannot thank you enough. Everybody who listens to the show, we love each and every one of you, and we need all of you. Thank you.
Indeed. Needs a key word. Good night, everyone.